Strong! Faster! With the sting of the whip on my shoulder, with the salt of my sweat on my brow, and oh, keep God mine, and you hear your people cry, help us now, this dark hour, deliver us, hear a call, deliver us, Lord of all, remember us, still in this burning sand, deliver us, there's a land you promised us, deliver us to the promised land.
ילדי הטוב והנאה, אל תירא ואל תפחד. My son, I have nothing I can give but this chance that you may live. I pray we'll meet again if he will deliver us. Hear a prayer, deliver us from this very years of slavery, broken road to stand. Deliver us. There's a land you promised us. Deliver us out of bondage. Deliver us to the Hush now, my baby, be still now, don't cry. Sleep as you're rocked by the stream. Sleep and remember my last lullaby. So I'll be with you when you dream. River, flow gently for me. Such precious cargo you bear. Do you know somewhere he can live free? River, deliver him there.
Just for you.
שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם השם, עושה שמיים וארץ, אל ייתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל, השם שומרך, השם צילך, על יד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יקקה וירח בלילה, השם ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, השם ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם. שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם השם, עושה שמיים וארץ, אל ייתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל, השם שומרך, השם צילך, על יד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יקקה וירח בלילה, השם ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, השם ישמור צאתך.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to this week's World Alliance of Qara'im Torah study. I am Hakham Melech Rahmiel ben Yaakov, and we have what I hope is going to be a very interesting and wonderful study. As usual, we're going to continue studying the minor prophets. We're in the book of Zefaniah. We'll be starting with chapter 2, and last week we started learning the book of Numbers. We began the book of Numbers, so we're going to continue in chapter 1 of the book of Numbers. We have some new people here today, people that I've spoken to during this week, one that I spoke to today, and I hope she's here. If not, I hope at least she will watch the replay. So let's welcome her. I don't know if she wants her name mentioned, but she's from Austria, and she has recently found her way back to Torah, so we welcome her into the community. She can say hi if she wishes. If not, then no. What is this little girl doing? These cats are going to drive me nuts. Oh, God. So, we found this cat about a month ago now, a little bit over a month, and she's doing great. She was literally within hours of death, probably. I was backing up my car, and all of a sudden I hear this screech, and I thought I'd killed the cat. I thought maybe I even injured or killed one of my own cats, and I immediately stopped the car and rush out, and there's this little half-dead kitten lying on the pavement, and I thought at first she was dead. She wasn't barely moving. She wasn't moving at all, and I realized she was still breathing barely, and I brought her inside. At any rate, you guys all heard the story. You know, for the first couple of days, she didn't eat, she didn't drink, she couldn't even stand up. If she tried to stand up, she would just collapse right back onto the little blanket that I'd put her on. But yes, hi there, hi Selena. And every time I walked in, you know, we put her in a certain room, and every time I walked in, I said, there's a possibility she'll be dead. And somehow the little girl survived, and she is doing great. I brought her to the vet yesterday. She's having the sniffles lately, so she got an antibiotic, and she got a deworming pill and all this kind of stuff. And boy, this little girl does not stop eating. So I named her, tentatively gave her the name Nace, which means in modern Hebrew, it means miracle, because it's a miracle that this little girl survived. And she's just a happy little kitten that's jumping all over the place and driving me crazy and trying to integrate with the other two cats, all of which we also found when I was living in Portugal, and we found them also, that it was, if I didn't take them home, then it's doubtful they would have lived. So there was no choice. They found me, I didn't find them. Anyway, just a slight update. So she's jumping on things right now. And anyway, she's doing really well, for all of those who asked. So we'll go ahead, and we're going to be studying the book of Zefaniah and in just a little while. And I just want to share some thoughts and update. You know, as I mentioned, the English-speaking community here in the city that I live in the Golan Heights, is completely ostracized me. They won't even talk to me if I walk down the street. Many of them will just look the other way, like not even acknowledge my existence. But it's very interesting because first of all, this is not the first time this happened to me. When you take a stand on something, this is going to happen to you. And that's it. At a certain point, you either stick with what you believe, or you give in to peer pressure, to social pressure, like you're in the 7th grade or the 8th grade or something like that. So, you know, my opinion is good riddance, but there have been some surprises. So first of all, there have been a number of people, I would say maybe, oh, little girl, what are you doing? What is this girl doing? Oh my God. All right, as long as she's safe. You know, there have been a number of people who have been very supportive or friendly towards me from the community. There have even been a number who have come to me and said basically implied, they didn't say it outright, but they basically implied, listen, we basically agree with you. You know, this is something that I've been thinking, or they said it to me, this is something I've been thinking for years. But, you know, I have kids in school. I have to be part of a community. I have to fit in. I can't be, you know, I can't be that bold. I can't take that boldest stand. And I totally understand when people come to me from that point of view. I 100% understand. And in fact, I encourage people not to take, you know, some people, what is this girl doing? Oh my God, what just happened? She fell into the plant. Oh my God, if you guys only saw what was going on here. At any rate, as long as she's fine. You okay, little girl? Okay. So, you know, it's funny because some people accuse me of trying to convert or trying to proselytize people towards charism. And yes, of course, I'm always trying to give my point of view, as any person would. But I actually advise people, don't outrightly, especially if you're in the Orthodox community, and if you have families and children, don't outrightly become Karaite, because you're going to be ostracized. And it's not for everybody. You really have to think it through carefully. You can still keep up appearances, pretend to be an Orthodox Jew, but deep down hold your own thoughts, which many Orthodox Jews do, not just here in the community here, but all around the world. I've been speaking to Orthodox Jews. I was an Orthodox Jew for close to 10 years in one degree or another. And I've been speaking to Orthodox Jews for decades, and many of them don't believe it. They think the whole thing is a bunch of BS, but it's important to them to stay in the community. They get social interaction from the community. They get money from the community if they need it. They get support. They get a wife. They get schools for their children, and so on and so forth. So it's not easy to take a stand. That being said, I always do say to people, just know what you're getting yourself into. If you do take a stand, on Karaism. If you do, if you are previously part of an Orthodox community and you take a stand on Karaism, then you have to know what you're in for, what's going to happen, and how you're going to be treated. Because quite frankly, the Orthodox Jews, they consider Karaism more of a threat than Christianity. Why? Because they know Christianity is a bunch of baloney, and deep down in the hearts of their souls, whatever they have left of their souls, what is this girl doing? That has not been co-opted by the Orthodox rabbinical cult. They know that Karaism is correct. They know rabbinical Orthodox Judaism is a bunch of BS. They know it deep down in their hearts. And so when someone comes along like me, who's Karaite, Tanach-only, whatever you want to call it, and hits them with the truth, and again, I don't attribute this to anything special about myself. There are, anyone who searches out the truth of the Torah will come to many of the same conclusions that I believe that I've come to. But when you hit them with the truth, it's almost too much for them. They can't take it. The light is too much, and they just retreat into this kind of. It's almost like a tortoise curling up in its shell, or like a little child, that can't deal with the cognitive dissonance, and so runs back to its its safe space. It's to its mommy, so to speak, or its daddy, and then you see very immature and childish behavior come out of these people. It's unbelievable, actually. Like sometimes I wonder, when I've interacted with some of the people in the Orthodox Jewish community here in the city that I live in, the Golan Heights, I wonder, am I dealing with mature adults, or am I dealing with children in the 6th grade or the 7th grade or the 8th grade? And it's been very interesting and very actually kind of hilarious almost to watch the progression, because at first nobody knew I was a Karaite because I don't go around advertising it. And then, but if people ask me, I will say what I believe. And, I don't hide it. I have YouTube videos stretching back decades and writing stretching back decades. And, I'm very open about what I believe, but I don't go around, wearing it on my sleeve. But if people ask me about it, of course I'm going to tell them what I believe. And so at first, nobody knew I was a Karaite. I'm talking again within this particular community that I was part of. Then eventually one person found out, and, he was a little bit, taken aback, but didn't really upset him too much. In fact, afterwards, we had a very nice working relationship. And then other people found out, and they really didn't care. So there was this period of, I would say, about 6 months or so, where people knew in this community knew I was a Karaite and just didn't care. Okay, that's what Melech believes. We don't believe it. We don't agree. It's a little bit off. It's not in line with our belief system, but it's okay. But then one by one, you could see, and it started with a certain incident, which I won't get into right now. It's irrelevant. One by one, you could see that they started. First, it was one person that ostracized me, and then another one, and then you saw one by one. It was almost like dominoes falling, or like, I don't know how to explain it. Like people, like like a light switch going from on to off or off to on. One by one, you saw them switch to the other side, whereby they would not, where they would ostracize me. They would reject me. Shalom, Cook, Ash, 14. Okay. I hope you didn't burn your food. I hope that's not why you're called Cook Ash. At any rate, welcome. And so you would see them switch over to the other side, like a light switch is suddenly going off. And one by one, each of these people who I guess I could call them my friends, but they never really were my friends. If the person doesn't stick you, through thick or thin, they never were your friends. But one by one, you could see them, switching over to the side where all of a sudden, like they knew the whole time that I was a Karaite, but now it was like jumping on the bandwagon, and more people started jumping on this bandwagon. It was almost like groupthink. It was almost like, like a cult kind of behavior. It was crazy. Actually, it was just ridiculous. It was I won't say shocking to watch, because I've seen this before, but it was just fascinating to watch, until finally, I won't say finally, it's still ongoing, but one person who had said all along, oh, I don't care what you believe, you believe what you believe, said to me, I know you're wrong and I'm right, but you can believe what you believe. I call him Mr. Tough Guy. He's tough about everybody, tough towards everyone. He's a very insulting kind of guy. And he always said, and he says to me, this was last week. He says, I said hi to him because he's still one of the ones who was ostensibly my friend. He said, oh, I'm sorry. I've been told that I'm not allowed to talk to you anymore. And I said, really? You've been told, you've been instructed, you don't have a mind of your own. I mean, here's this guy who pretends to be Mr. Tough Guy, Mr. Insulting everybody, Mr. He doesn't give a damn what anyone thinks. And here he is falling into this like cult like behavior. So it's really interesting to see that really when you think of a group like Rabbinical Judaism, and it applies to others, to other groups as well, whether it's, I don't know, the Mormons or who knows what, right? The Jehovah's Witnesses, I don't know. There are plenty of cults out there, but when you see this cult-like behavior where people give up on their independent thought process, their own ability to think, and fall into kind of groupthink and join the bandwagon, even though before they didn't, they just started joining it as other people, or as the bandwagon grew, you realize you're not dealing with differentiated, self-actualized adults. You are dealing with brainwashed children. You're dealing with people who obviously have not reached a level of maturity that they can make their own decisions. They've not reached a level of psychological health or psychological independence that they can confront differences of opinion head on through facts, through discussion, through debate. And instead they have to resort to these childlike behaviors. It's pathetic, honestly. It's really pathetic, and it just exposes what a pathetic cult Orthodox Judaism is, and that it's not based in truth, and that they know it. Because if they were confident in their own belief system, they would not have to resort to the behavior of eighth graders, of children. They would be able to retain their ability as adults. I disagree with a lot of people out there. I disagree with Christians. I disagree with people who believe even that. I know one person who's joining us today believes it, and that's fine. It doesn't cross a red line for me. But people who believe that Jesus/Yeshua is future Messiah over Israel, I disagree with that. I think the future, first of all, I don't think the Messiah is an important thing. I think we should be waiting for Yahweh, God, to come back, not for a human being. But that being said, that the future Davidic king over, what the heck is this girl doing? The future Davidic king over Israel is not going to be someone who lived and died in the past. It's going to be a new person. It's going to be a descendant of David. Just as Solomon was not a reincarnation of someone else, although if you ask some rabbinical Jews, they have, I think everyone's pretty much a reincarnation of everyone else. Gets a little bit weird sometimes. But so, and I disagree with these people. I disagree, but that's okay. I can have an open discussion. I can discuss it. I can explain why I disagree, and I can accept that someone doesn't agree with me, and it doesn't cause, it's not for me means for ostracization, etc. I'm friends with Muslims. I'm friends with Trinitarian Christians. I'm friends with Messianic Jews. I'm friends with all types of people that I don't agree with, as long as they're respectful, and as long as we can have an exchange of ideas, then I'll speak to pretty much anyone. But because I'm confident in my belief system, and I don't need to resort to childlike behavior to defend it, because the only reason someone would do that is if deep down they know there's something wrong with it. So that's been what's going on, and it's very interesting. And to those who have ostracized me, I say good riddance. Good riddance. In fact, Mr. Tough Guy, who I won't mention his name, but I would speak to him on the phone, and it was the same conversation every single time. All this guy did was speak what they call lashon hara. Would speak about other people incessantly, talk about this person and talk about this person. I couldn't take it. I don't like to be in conversations where people are constantly talking about other people behind their back. And so when Mr. Tough Guy finally said that he's been instructed not to talk to me, maybe it hurt for a minute because I thought he was my friend. But in the end, I said, thank God, I don't have to have these weekly conversations with him. He'll talk your ear off, sometimes for an hour, and I have to excuse myself, or sometimes make an excuse to get off the phone. And all he does is talk about just talk about other people, just gossip about other people. I can't take it. So good riddance to all these people who are not my friend, who never were my friend. They're going to have to meet their own fate. Rabbinical Judaism is a lie. Rabbinical Judaism is fake. They know it. I know it. Everyone with half a brain in their head knows it, and they'll have to meet their own fate and their own the consequences of their own decisions somewhere down the road. And in the meantime, I don't miss them at all. And there have been some people from the community, Shabbat Shalom, Suri, Shabbat Shalom. There have been some people from the community who have been very supportive towards me. As I said, a number of people have come to me and basically said in not so many words, I basically agree with you, but I can't really say it. I've got to be part of a community. I've got to have kids. I have kids in school. I don't want to take that kind of stand and be ostracized. And I said, I totally understand. Just keep it to yourself. And if you ever need to talk, then we can talk. And a number of people from that so-called rabbinical community have communicated that to me. And then other people have just been kind of supportive of me. Like they've said, it's unfortunate what happened. You shouldn't have been ostracized. I can believe what I believe. You can believe what you believe. In other words, there are some mature people there. And I think that's the sign of maturity, that they can realize that they can have a certain belief system. I can have another belief. I can have a different belief system, and it doesn't have to be a threat to them. Those are people who actually have reached a higher level of maturity, and it never ceases to amaze me that the ones that I thought were the mature ones turn out to be the most immature ones, or the ones that I thought that were my friends and would support me turn out to be the ones who turn against me the most, and the ones that I wasn't sure about or thought they didn't really have much of a liking towards me turn out to be the ones that come out and support me and defend me. And you never know who it's going to be. It's kind of completely unexpected, and it has been in this case. And I have a certain number of people in mind right now that I'm thinking of, which some of them I never thought really took much of a liking to me, but they have been friendly towards me, supportive of me, and so on and so forth. But at any rate, it doesn't matter. It makes no difference to me. What's important to me is the truth. What's important to me is learning and teaching and exploring the words and the way of Yahweh, the God of Israel. And if that means I have 500 friends, so be it. And if that means I have 2 friends, so be it. Thank God I have people who I've known for years, for decades. I have friends stretching back to childhood who are loyal to me, to the death, literally. And so I don't really need a particular community or another community. And I'm just happy, reducing my circle of acquaintances to those who either accept my points of view or who actually agree with me and my points of view. Okay, so that being said, just give me 1 second. Let me turn on the light here. It's getting a bit dark. It's already 7:30 here in Israel. So just give me 1 second. So the other thought that I wanted to express, and yes, we should not Selena. So the other thought that I wanted to express, and regarding this, is the idea of Orthodox rabbinical Judaism. Right? We have to stop thinking that these people are following Torah. Orthodox Jews, rabbinical Jews, are not following Torah. We have to get it out of our head. They promote the idea. They believe that they're following Torah. They promote the idea to the rest of the nation of Israel, to the world, that they are following Torah. They promote the idea that they are the guarders, the keepers of Torah, the teachers of Torah, the understanders of Torah, and they are not. Orthodox Jews do not follow. היי, זה, מה נשמע? עכשיו? אוקיי, אז אני אכנס בפנים. אתה עושה את זה עכשיו? אין בעיה, אני אכנס בפנים. אוקיי, guys, 1 second please. אתה עושה את זה עכשיו זה? עכשיו. לא, זה בסדר. אני אכנס בפנים, כי זה הרבה רעש, אז אני אעשה את זה בפנים, אין שום בעיה. Okay, hold on 1 second, people. Oh. 1 second, I just have to move position. Just give me a minute here. Just temporarily. Give me a second here. Sorry. Okay, 1 second, everyone. see. 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. I just position temporarily. So, as I was saying, go back to the place where I was in about 10, 15 minutes. As I was saying, we have to eliminate this idea that Orthodox Jews keep the Torah. They do not keep the Torah. There's something called, I believe it's called confirmation bias, if I'm getting it right. Let me look it up for a second here. So confirmation bias, I'm reading from Google, is the habit of mind that makes people look for, favor, and remember facts that match what they already think. It leads people to accept friendly news, forget opposing signs, and misread mixed clues as proof they are right. So I don't know if it's exactly confirmation bias, but it's bias in the sense of, hold on 1 second here. Give me 1 second here. 1 second. I just want to do a speed check. Sorry about this. Just bear with me. Let me just see, because I might have to switch networks. No, we're good. Okay. So maybe it's not exactly confirmation bias, but the basic idea of what I want to say is that we have come to accept that Orthodox Judaism, that rabbinical Jews represent the Torah. They believe it, they promote it, and they do not represent the Torah. As I always say, oops, I'm frozen. What is going on here? All right, I have to switch networks. Excuse me 1 second, please. Sorry about all of these. Just give me 1 second. One second. What's going on here? 1 second, please. Okay. Again, let me just run a quick speed check. I'm sorry about these technical problems. That's just the way it goes sometimes. I think we should be good now. One more speed check. Yes, we definitely are good now. Okay. Sorry about that. So at any rate, what we have to understand is that rabbinical Judaism is it's a derivative religion. It's like Christianity or it's like Islam. It is not Torah. It's a derivative religion that grew out of Torah, and that is a permutation or a distortion of Torah, just as Islam grew out of 7th century Arabia, just as Christianity grew out of 1st century Roman-controlled Israel. So rabbinical Judaism grew out of essentially Greek, Hellenistic, Roman, and Babylonian-controlled Israel and Mesopotamia. And that's what it is. It is not Torah. It's a derivative religion. So rabbinical Jews are not keeping Torah. Get it through your head. They are not keeping Torah. And Selena says, so why do they say that they are now the rabbis keeping that? Because that's what they believe. Just as if you speak to a Muslim, they will believe that they have the truth, that Muhammad was the seal of the prophethood, and that the Quran was transmitted by the angel Gabriel to Muhammad, and so on and so forth. The Mormons will believe that angels came to the United States of America and transmitted the Book of Mormon to their community. People believe all kinds of crazy things, but as Karaites, as Tanach-only people, we have to search out the truth, And we have to realize that we cannot believe the propaganda of other religions, and I consider rabbinical Judaism another religion, just because they themselves might believe it. And I'll say even more. The higher you look in rabbinical Judaism, in other words, the more, the quote unquote, the greater the rabbi, the less that person keeps Torah. So that if you get to the top of the chain, the so-called great rabbis, the Gedolei Ador, or the great rabbis of rabbinical Judaism, they are keeping Torah the least. Right, exactly. Yes, Selena. Okay, let me go on. Right, they are keeping Torah the least. And the lay person, the actual, the Orthodox Jew who doesn't really, is not a rabbinical scholar, is just, I don't know, does whatever, lights the Shabbat candles and says the blessings before eating an orange or whatever. They're actually keeping rabbinical Judaism more. I mean, they're actually keeping Torah more because they're further away from the insanity of rabbinical Judaism. They're just lay people. So if you want to find the people who keep the Torah the least, then go up the chain of rabbinical Judaism. And if you get to the Gedolei Ador, if you get to the great ones of the generation, the great rabbis of the generation, they are the farthest away from Torah of all of the rabbinical Jews. And if you move down the chain towards just the lay people who are just keeping a kind of watered down version of rabbinical Judaism, they're actually closer to Torah because they're not buying into the whole lie of rabbinical Judaism. So I think it's very important for us to stop this confirmation bias, or whatever the technical name may be. Stop believing that rabbinical Jews are following Torah. They are not following Torah. They are not keepers of Torah. They are keepers of a derivative religion, just as Muslims are not following Torah, even though Islam is based on the Torah to a certain degree. And just as Christians are not keeping the Torah, even though Christianity is based on the Torah to a certain degree. These are Abrahamic religions. There are three derivative Abrahamic religions of Torah. One is Christianity, the second is Islam, and the third is rabbinical Judaism. None of them are Torah, okay? And in fact, I don't even think I would rank rabbinical Judaism closest to the Torah. I might rank Islam closest to the Torah, and with rabbinical Judaism and Christianity kind of tied in second and third place. At any rate, let's stop believing that rabbinical Jews keep Torah. They don't. Okay, they are actually fulfilling. Remember, recently we finished Leviticus, the book of Leviticus, and if we look in Leviticus chapter 26, we see in Leviticus chapter 26:40. I'll bring it up here. Give me 1 second. So if you speak to rabbinical Jews, they'll always talk about their traditions, the traditions of their ancestors and so on. They're following their father's traditions. What does it say in Leviticus chapter 26, verse 40? It says what we're supposed to do with these so-called traditions of our fathers, of our ancestors, and it says it very clearly. I'll just read the English translation, the NIV translation. So Leviticus chapter 26, verse 38, I'll start in. You will perish among the nations. The land of your enemies will devour you. Those of you who are left will waste away in the lands of their enemies because of their sins. Also because of their ancestors' sins, they will waste away, right? They will waste away because of their sins and because of their ancestors' sins. But if they will confess their sins and the sins of their ancestors, their unfaithfulness and their hostility towards me, which they made me hostile towards them, so that I sent them into the land of their enemies, then when their uncircumcised hearts are humbled and they pay for their sin, I will remember my covenant with Jacob, my covenant with Isaac, my covenant with Abraham, and I will remember the land. Okay? So we see in Leviticus chapter 26, verse 40, are we supposed to follow the ways of our ancestors, of our fathers, of our forefathers? No, we're supposed to reject them. Again, verse 40 says, but if they will confess their sins and the sins of their ancestors, okay? We're supposed to reject the ways of our ancestors. Our ancestors sinned. Our ancestors violated the Torah. That's why the northern kingdom of Israel was destroyed by the Assyrians in 722 BCE, and the southern kingdom of Judea was destroyed by the Babylonians in 586 BCE, and all 12 tribes went out into exile by that time. It was because we had violated the Torah, we had violated the covenant with Yahweh, and we had taken on foreign ideas, foreign gods, foreign processes, thought processes, and created new religions. And that's exactly what the rabbis did. Rabbinical Judaism does not have its source going all the way back to Mount Sinai. It has its source in the Hellenistic period, when the Seleucid Greeks took over the land of Israel from the Ptolemaic Greeks around the year 200 BCE, and instituted a policy of Hellenization, of establishing or of promoting Hellenized culture throughout the land of Israel. Actually, already before in other places, it had already been promoted, but that's when it really made its advance in the land of Israel, and that's exactly when the rabbinical movement arose. The rabbinical movement is an outcropping, it's an outgrowth of Hellenistic Hellenistic takeover of the land of Israel. And rabbinical Judaism is not Torah. It's a Hellenistic religion. It's a Hellenistic /Roman/Babylonian religion that is heavily influenced by these foreign cultures, by these foreign ideas, by these foreign thought patterns. And I won't get into detail right now, but I have a very good acquaintance, a friend, who's written his entire doctoral thesis on this very idea. I hope to have him on my podcast. He may even be joining us right now. I'm not sure. I invite him each week to this study. But that's what we're looking at when we look at rabbinical Judaism. It doesn't stretch back 3,000 years to Mount Sinai, to Moses. It stretches back 2,200 years to Hellenistic controlled, to Greek controlled, Hellenistic influenced Israel. Okay, so do not think that rabbinical Jews, that Orthodox Jews are keeping the Torah. They're not. They're keeping Hellenistic. They're keeping a Hellenistic version, a Hellenistic influenced derivative religion based loosely on the covenant of the Torah. So that's, I guess, kind of my message for today. A lot more to say, but I'll leave it at that. If anyone has any questions or comments, right, do not turn to the right, to the left. Do not add and do not take away from the law. The rabbis add so much to the law. Adding to the law is just as bad as taking away from the law. You're not more pious if you add to the law. You're less pious, okay? And the example I always give is, I don't know, let's say a basketball team, right? If a basketball team consists of, how many people are on a basketball team? I don't know. I only play it. I don't really watch it. I don't know. Let's say 8 people or something like that. That's 6, 7, or 8 people on a basketball team. If suddenly you put 25 people on the basketball team, you're not playing a better game of basketball. You're violating the rules of basketball. It's not a better version of basketball. It's a worse version of basketball. Just like if you have only 2 people on the team, it's a worse version of basketball. There's a balance that has to be hit. And yes, I did do the weekly Torah portions. I did do the weekly Torah portions for a long time, and I don't do that anymore. Cook Ash 14, and the reason I don't do that is because it's not viable. It's too much to cover in a study. So about 3 years ago, I decoupled the studies from the weekly portion. The weekly portion is usually a couple of chapters of the Tanakh, and I don't feel we can do it justice by doing the weekly portion. It just goes too quickly, and what used to happen was that I would get through, maybe the first fifth of the weekly portion, and then the rest would be ignored. Excuse me for 1 second. I'll be right back. One second, please. Okay, sorry about that. Number of distractions here. No biggie. Give me 1 more second here. Okay, so right. Okay, so yeah, so that is the story. That is pretty much what I have to say. And I actually I feel sorry for the people stuck in rabbinical Judaism, because I know what their fate is in the end if they don't repent of this distorted form of Torah. I know what their fate is. It's the same fate that Jews throughout the generations have faced, whereby I live in Israel, and it's only a small fraction of the Jewish nation that has made it back to the land of Israel. For thousands of years, many of us, many Jews have been killed in pogroms, holocausts, inquisitions, rapes, murders, and so on and so forth. And it's only a small portion that made it back to the land of Israel. The rest died off, and their descendants, even in many cases, died off. So I know that if you stick to falsehood, then your chances of making it to the next stage, there will be another sifting, there will be another sorting, there will be another time when a she'arit, when a remnant is sorted from the general pool, and not everyone is going to make the cut. And I know that these rabbinical Jews who are so arrogant and who are so sure of themselves are actually in deep trouble. They're in a very dire situation, because they're not following Torah. They're following this false religion in their stubbornness. And I actually kind of hope that they can see through the lies and the falsehood. And if they don't, then they might be cut from the team, so to speak, just as so many Jews over the years, over the centuries, over the millennia, have been cut from the team. Their seed themselves and their seed have been completely cut off, excised from the people of Israel for the sins of their ancestors. So while the rabbinical Jews are so concerned about following the ways of their ancestors, in fact, what they're doing is following in the sinful ways of their ancestors, and there's a consequence. There's a price to be paid for that. And when this next sorting happens, and it will happen, there will be many more difficult times that the nation of Israel has to go through, both here in Israel and in the diaspora. But the end goal is clear, that the nation, a remnant of the nation, will live in the land of Israel, will reassemble itself in the land of Israel, and will keep the covenant of the Torah as it is meant to be kept. And those who don't, I'm not a judge, jury, and executioner, but Yahweh is. And those who don't, who are saying, who are talking about, my traditions, my ancestors, right? My ancestors, they may find themselves on the losing side of that cut when Yahweh decides to make his next moves to purify the nation of Israel and to reduce the numbers to those who are truly loyal to them. So they see me, these rabbinical Jews in the community here, for instance, see me as an enemy. And actually, I was just honestly trying to help them try to see the truth, help them try to see the light. But you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I hope for their own sakes that they wake up and see the light and realize that they're following a false, Hellenistic derivative, distorted religion that is only loosely coupled with the covenant of the Torah. And if they don't, then it's not up to me, it's up to Yahweh what he decides. But all rabbis, yes, every single rabbi, yes, Selena, I'm sorry to tell you, every single one of them, it's like saying all Catholic priests or all Christian pastors, are they following a false religion? Yes, by the very fact that they are a Catholic priest or a Christian preacher, they are following a false religion. Okay, what their fate is not up to me or not up to anyone. It's up to Yahweh. It's up to God. But yes, every single rabbi, by the very fact that he's a rabbi, is following a false religion. That is true. That's the sad truth of the situation, but it is the truth. Okay, all right. Let me end my soliloquy here, my rant, if you want to call it that, and we'll take a break for a couple of minutes, and then we will dig into the book of Zefaniah, and we'll see what the great prophets have to say rather than just what I have to say. Any questions, any comments before we take a quick break and then go to the book of Zefaniah? Anybody? And I know it seems I'm being, because I know Selena is new here, that I'm being negative or just harsh on the rabbis, but that's the truth. You know, I don't focus these studies on rabbi bashing. It's I say every Karaite Torah study should have a little bit of rabbi bashing in there. We have to expose the lie of this false religion, of this false 2,000-year-old Hellenistic Roman Babylonian religion. We must. It's important because they present themselves as the truth. They present themselves as the Torah. They present themselves as the only game out there. But that's not my focus. And so, you know, it's not about bashing them. It's about speaking the truth and helping other people understand and realize the truth. Okay. 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 So we're going to take a break now for a couple minutes, and we'll come back. I'll put some music on, and then we'll come back, and we will dig into the book of Zefaniah, So see you guys back here in just a couple of minutes.
Avino, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Avino, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Cuando el rey Nimrod al campo salía, vino en el cielo y en la estrellería, ídolo santa en la judería, que había de nacer Abraham Avino. Abraham Avino, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Abraham Avino, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. La mujer de Terra ordenada, día ella preguntaba, ¿qué tiene la cara tan demonada? Ella ya sabía el bien que tenía. Abraham Avino, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Abraham Avino, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel.
caminando por campos en viñas y a su marido no le descubría, topó una marali parería. Abraham vino, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Abraham vino, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Abraham vino, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Vino, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel. Abraham vino, Padre querido, Padre bendito, luz de Israel.
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back. Once again, this is the World Alliance of Qara'im Shabbat Torah study. I am Hakham Melech Rahmiel ben Yaakov of the World Alliance of Qara'im, and we are now going to go ahead and study the book of Zefaniah, chapter 2. Let me just again talk very briefly about various programs. So we are in the process of building a community here in Israel, an actual live World Alliance of Qara'im community. If you live in Israel or if you live outside of Israel and you want to be part of this community, then you are welcome to do so. Please contact me privately, and I can give you all the details of what is going on. We're also working on a bunch of other projects. We want to set up a Karaite Learning Center. We want to start publishing a weekly newsletter or Parsha sheet, if you know what that is, and a whole bunch of other projects. We want to set up eventually schools and a real live living World Alliance of Qara'im neo-Karaite community. Okay, so that being said, as you guys know, and as I've mentioned many times, and those of you who know me for decades and decades and decades know that I'm not a particularly materialistic person, but we do need your financial support. The easiest way to financially support us is to join our community. Here's the QR code up on the screen in the upper left. That's join the WAC. You get many benefits for joining the community, including a lot more access to the leadership of the community, a lot more interaction with the other members of the community, and it's not particularly expensive. As I always say, it's about half the price of a cell phone service, a monthly cell phone service in the United States. And if you haven't done so already, then I please ask you to do so. In addition, if you would like to give private donations, whether you give tzedakah or tithe, or I don't know, your great uncle just died and left you $5 million and you're trying to figure out what to do with it, then we'll be happy to take it off your hands. And I mean that, I'm saying it facetiously, but I'm being very serious. We have a lot of projects that we're working on. We have a lot of projects that we want to do, and we need your financial assistance in order to be able to do that. Okay, so let me put up this is our donation link. If you wish to donate to the World Alliance of Qara'im, then you can follow that link. There you can donate by credit card, by debit card, and also in the description for the study and for every study we do, you'll see other ways to donate as well, by PayPal, by cryptocurrency, by Bitcoin, by Zelle if you live in the United States, and bank transfer, and so on and so forth. So please consider doing that. And it really helps us out, not helps us out. But again, I truly, truly believe in my heart that charism and getting the word out about charism is absolutely critical for the future of the nation of Israel. The nation of Israel is going to face some very, very difficult times, just as we did on October 7th, 2020. God, was it 23? Can't believe it. Almost 3 years ago. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And the key, I truly believe this in my heart and soul, the key to bringing salvation to our people, to getting them to where they ultimately need to get, is to get the word out of charism / Tanach-only Judaism. And that requires doing that in the real world. And that requires, of course, your generous donations. So enough about that. I will not mention money again this entire study, but I do need to mention it each study because for many years I did not focus on that, thinking that the money would just flow in, and I realized that it does not, that there has to be some kind of structure set up and there has to be some kind of incentive set up. That's just the way human nature is. So I hope you'll consider doing that, and I'll leave it at that. Okay, let's get into the book of Zefaniah. So I'm going to share the screen now. Shabbat Shalom, Martha. Shabbat Shalom. So nice to see you here. Okay, so we're going to study the book of Zefaniah. We're in chapter 2. And I hope everyone can see the screen there. So remember we did chapter 1 last time. And I don't know if I want to read the whole thing. I do like to do review by reading the English. But I think we did most of it. Let's see, maybe I'll read the second half of it. So there are, how many verses? 18. So let me start in verse 10, just again to get the context. So we see in Zefaniah chapter 1, verse 10. You can follow along on the screen, or if you have your own version in the English or the Hebrew or any other language, feel free to follow along. So on that day declares Yahweh, a cry will go up from the fish gate. Fish gate is one of the gates in ancient Jerusalem, wailing from the new quarter, and a loud crash from the hills. Wail, you who live in the market district. All your merchants will be wiped out. All who trade with silver will be destroyed. Talking about the destruction of Jerusalem. At that time, I will search Jerusalem with lamps and punish those who are complacent, who are like wine left on its dregs. And remember, Zefaniah is prophesying during the time of King Josiah. And Josiah is just a couple of generations before the destruction of Jerusalem. Josiah was one of the righteous kings. He wiped out idol worship in the land. He reinstituted he was the king when the scroll of the Torah was found, and reinstituted the keeping of the Torah, which had apparently been completely lost, at least in Judea. But this is just a couple of generations before the destruction of Judah, the southern kingdom of Jerusalem, by the Babylonians in 586 BCE. At any rate, who think Yahweh will do nothing, either good or bad. Their wealth will be plundered, their houses demolished. Though they build houses, they will not live in them. Though they plant vineyards, they will not drink the wine. The great day of Yahweh is near and coming quickly. The cry on the day of Yahweh is bitter. The mighty warrior shouts his battle cry. That day will be a day of wrath, a day of distress and anguish, a day of trouble and ruin, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and blackness, a day of trumpet and battle cry against the fortified cities and against the corner towers. I will bring such distress on all people that they will grope around like those who are blind because they have sinned against Yahweh. Their blood will be poured out like dust and their entrails like dung. Neither their silver nor their gold will be able to save them on the day of Yahweh's wrath. In the fire of his jealousy, the whole earth will be consumed, for he will make a sudden end of all who live on the earth. So this is really an oracle ultimately against Jerusalem, but also is extending, or at least by poetically extending, to the rest of the world, right? So it's kind of what we can call a negative prophecy. It's definitely not a prophecy of hope and consolation. Okay, so now let's go on to Zefaniah chapter 2, and now we're going to dig in the Hebrew. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. So we're going to read in the Hebrew and translate into the English. We'll do some commentary from Robert Alter, as we usually do. Okay, so let's do so. Okay. Hit kosheshu, wakoshu, agoy lo nechsav. So hit kosheshu, gather together. And gather yourselves together. Nation, you nation that is not to be desired. Here they translate as shameful nation. Let's get a Robert Alter translation on that one. So gather yourselves, O gather nation undesired. Okay, and any comment here? So the verbal stem is generally used for gathering of firewood and the like. In fact, we have the story in the book of Numbers, which we'll get to, or in the book of Numbers, of the Mikoshesha Eitzim, the wood gatherer, the person who goes out and gathers wood on the Shabbat, and that's the word that is used, mikoshesh, and so that's the same word that we have here. Here it might suggest that the people have fallen apart, become disparate sticks or limbs, and need to be pulled together. Okay, so that's speaking towards Israel, right? So gather yourselves together, you shameful nation, or you undesirable nation. Verse 2. B'terem ledet chok kimotz avar yom. So before the birth of the statute, or the birth of the decree, they translated here, Amotz avar yom. Motz is chaff. It's the part of the wheat that blows away when you winnow, right? It's not the seed, it's all of the other parts, the surrounding area. It's the undesirable part of the wheat. And in ancient times, I guess in modern times, I guess now they don't do it that way anymore, at least in most places with industrial agriculture. But you would take the all of the wheat, and you would basically thrash it or thresh it, which means you would break it up into its, you basically pound it, and then you would take these winnowing forks, you would throw the whole thing up into the air, and the seeds would fall back onto the ground, and the chaff would, which are the shells of the seeds, and the pieces of stalk, of wheat stalk, and so on, would blow away in the wind. That's winnowing, okay? And that's the chaff, separating the wheat from the chaff. You've probably heard that instruction. So motz is the chaff, okay? And here they even translate it as wind-blown chaff, okay? Kemotz avar yom. In other words, it's gonna b'terem ledet chok kemotz avar yom, before the decree is given birth to, as quickly as the chaff is blown away, is the implication here. Let's look at a Robert Alter translation of that one. Okay, so before the decree is born, the day slips by like chaff before it comes upon you, the day of the Lord's fury. So this is kind of a continuation of the previous chapter, right? There's going to be this day of the Lord where this horrible tragedy is going to occur. The tragedy, again, is clearly speaking about the destruction of Jerusalem by the Babylonians, destruction of Judea, and then ultimately Jerusalem and the temple, the house of Yahweh, as it's called in the Tanakh. Okay, so b'terem lo yavo elechem. So before it comes upon you, charon af Yahweh, the furious anger, they translated here as fierce anger. Literally, it means charon af means fire coming out of the nose, not literally speaking, but figuratively speaking. What, little girl? Hold on a second. Come here, baby. Little girl, come here. These cats are looking at me. They want their food. I'll have to do it in a little while. Okay, so charon literally means fury or fire. All right, so look it up here. Right, fury, wrath, anger. And it's from the underlying root chara, het resh he, which means to burn. Okay, so, and let me just look this up for myself. One second. And so on and so forth. So it comes from so literally what it means here is fire, and af means nose. Okay, so it means before. So they translate here as fierce anger, but literally what it means is before fire comes out of the nose of Yahweh. And of course, it's not meant literally. Yahweh does not have a body. We're not Christians here. We don't believe that God can take on the form of a body, but it's figuratively speaking before fire comes out of Yahweh's nose. And that's a common expression to express the furious anger of Yahweh. And I wonder if the word fury, the English word fury, is related to etymologically to the English word fire. I think I once looked it up and I think it wasn't, but let's just look it up again. Fury etymology, just out of curiosity. Okay, so the word fury comes from the Old French, Latin, ancient mythology, tracing back to the roots fury, furia, and fuere, or furere. Old French, meaning rage or frenzy. Latin, it's rooted in furia, meaning violent passion, madness, or rage. This comes from the word furere, which means to rage or be mad. So let's ask Google AI, is the word fury etymologically related to the word fire? No, the word fury is not etymologically related to the word fire, despite the similar spelling and conceptual connection of burning rage. They come from entirely different language families and ancestral roots, so on and so forth. Okay, fury is Latin. It's from Romance languages. As established, fury comes from the Latin word furere, to rage. It entered English via Old French in the 14th century, and so on and so forth. Okay, but in Hebrew, what's translated here into English is fierce anger. In Hebrew, literally says charon. So charon is fire. Af is nose. So fire coming out of the nose of Yahweh. So we have this image of he's so angry that fire just comes right out of his nose. Okay. So B'terem, let's go on here. B'terem lo yavo alechem yom af Yahweh. So before it comes upon you, actually literally says before it does not come upon you, but the implication here is before it comes upon you, what comes upon you? Yom af Yahweh, literally the day of the nose of Yahweh. I'm reading it literally, but again, what it means is, figuratively speaking, the day of the day in which fire comes out of Yahweh's nose, or the day of Yahweh's fury. Okay, here they translate it as before the day of Yahweh's wrath. Okay, but we know that biblical Hebrew is a very descriptive language. It's a very poetic. No, that's not the right word. It uses a lot of expressions and imagery, and uses language in a very figurative way often. And so that's what we see here. Okay, so literally have this image of fire, of this day coming, and it's going to come very quickly, just like the wind carries away the chaff, and the wheat seeds fall to the ground. And on this day, and so before this day comes, and we'll see what the prophet says to do before this day comes, obviously to repent, he's going to say, right? But before this day comes, this day on which the fire comes out of the nose of Yahweh, figuratively speaking, then prepare yourselves. Okay, let's see if there's any Robert Alter. So seek the Lord, or here, verse 2, before the decree is born, the day slips by like chaff, before it comes upon you, the day of the Lord's fury. Okay, and that's verse 2. The day slips by you like chaff, and Robert Alter says the day is moving rapidly down on Judah like wind-borne chaff. Okay, again, if we look, let's even see. Okay, maybe we can find a quick video just to see what we're talking about, so we get that image. So let's see. A second here. Okay, so threshing, sifting, and winnowing wheat. We'll watch this. It's a 5-minute video because I think it's important. You know, the Tanakh uses a lot of agricultural language. It uses a lot of agricultural analogies because ancient Israelites were they were either farmers or shepherds. That's what 99% of 99%, a huge percentage of them were, right? So it's important to understand these metaphors, or these allegories, metaphors really, when they come about. So let me share this for a second in a slightly different way. Give me 1 second here. Take that away. Stop screen. Present. Share screen. wheat, boom, and that should do it. So that which remains, that's the motz, the chaff. That's the wheat. And now we're going to see winnowing. Okay, I think we get the idea. So that's winnowing. Obviously, in ancient times, they didn't have a fan, that they couldn't go to Walmart and buy a fan. So they had these winnowing forks. They had these forks that would lift all the stuff up, throw it like almost like a rake, throw it into the air on a windy day, and the wind would carry away the chaff, and then the wheat berries, the wheat grains, would fall back to the floor. So that's the analogy, the metaphor that we get here. All right, let me share the screen again. So we've seen two metaphors here already, and just in the beginning of Zefaniah, we've seen one of fire coming out of the nose of Yahweh, coming out of God's nose, and now we've seen that this day of judgment, is going to come so fast that it's as if it's going to come as fast as the wind carries away the chaff, the mutz in Hebrew. Mutz is chaff. Mutz means like chaff. Okay. All right. Verse 3. So what are we going to do? What is Zefaniah telling the people to do before this terrible day of wrath, of Yahweh's fierce anger, of the fire coming out of his nose comes? So verse 3 is a call to repentance. Of course, that's what one of the main things the prophets do. So bakshu et Yahweh kol anni'eh anweh haaretz. Seek out Yahweh, all of you humble ones of the land. Asher mishpato pa'alu. Who have done his judgments, in other words, who have kept his commandments. Bakshu tzedek. Search out, seek out justice. Bakshu an-nawa. Seek out humility. Ulai. Tisataru biyom af Yahweh. Maybe you will be hidden on the day of God's wrath, literally on the day of God's nose. And God's nose is a again, is a shortened form. I think technically it's called a sinechdochi of the day of fire coming out of God's nose. But it's on the day of God's nose, right? You would think, what, right? If anyone were to translate this literally, what does it mean? The day of God's nose, right? Doesn't make any sense. But again, this is the metaphor that's being used. Of course, it is proof that God's Jewish because it's talking about his nose, right? We know Jews have big noses, so therefore this is a textual proof that that God is Jewish, right? Because it's speaking about his big nose. Okay. Any rate, so yeah, typical call to repentance. Notice it doesn't say anything about putting on tefillin or separating meat and milk or saying or doing the Shemona Esrei, doing the prayer service in a synagogue 3 times a day. This is all irrelevant to the ancient prophets. Okay. What's relevant to the prophets is first and foremost justice, humility, doing that which is right, and separating oneself from that which is wrong. Okay. Any questions, any comments so far? We're up to verse 4. Just checking to see if there are any questions or any comments. No, there are not. So let's go on. The day that his patience is run out. Yeah, you could translate it that way, for sure. Okay. The day of his wrath. Okay, let's see if Robert Alter has anything to say about that verse. Nope. Alrighty, so verse 4. Yeah, this is important actually. Oh boy. Where is it? Well, we'll get to it. Okay. So verse 4. So now we're going to talk about, as it says here, Philistia. We're going to be mentioning the Philistine cities. There are 5 Philistine cities. Can anyone, pop quiz, anyone who could do it gets a lollipop. You'll have to provide yourself with a lollipop, but I give you permission to buy yourself a lollipop. Can anybody name the 5 cities of the Philistines? They always say there are two A's, an E, and 2 G's. Although in Hebrew it doesn't work out that way. Can anybody name any of the 5 cities of the Philistines? We see some in front of us right now. So the 2 A's are Ashdod and Ashkelon. The E is, that's right, Ashdod. Very good. Click Ash 14. Ashdod, not Ashton, but Ashdod and Ashkelon. 2 modern Israeli cities, not far from the ancient cities. And notice they're down south. If you look on the map today of Ashkelon and Ashdod is south of Ashkelon. They're right on the coast, and they're not far from the Gaza Strip. So those are the 2 A's. E is Ekron, and the 2 G's are Gat, which is where Goliath is from. If you look in the Book of Judges, chapter 17, you'll see that Goliath is from the city of Gat. And the last one is Gaza. And really in Hebrew, it's Gaza or Gaza, but in English, it's translated to Gaza. So Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, Gat, and Gaza, or Gaza, correct. Very good. Okay, so now we know that this is a prophecy, or we know that this is an oracle against the Philistines, because we're speaking here about the Philistine cities. Okay, verse 4. Ki Aza Azuva Tier, because Gaza will be abandoned. So there's one, Aza, Gaza. Wa Ashkelon Lishmama, and Ashkelon will become a desolation. Is city number 2. Ashkelon, Ashdod B'Tzoraim. You got a Shuha, and they Ashdod in the middle of the day, they will empty her out. They will kick out all of her inhabitants. They will exile all of her inhabitants. Ekron te'aker, and Ekron will be uprooted. Okay, so we have 4 of the 5 cities here. Okay, Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, and Ekron. The only one that's missing is Gat. And let's go on to verse 5. Hoi, Yoshve Hevel Hayam. Woe to you. Hoi is usually translated as woe to you. It's kind of a cry of despair, right? Hoi, it's onomatopoeic, right? It sounds as it means. So hoi yoshve hevel hayam. So woe to you, you inhabitants of the strip by the sea, right? The sea coast. Goy, Karaitim, the people of the Karaitim, the Karaite people, excuse me. And we'll talk about who they are in a second. Dvar Yahweh alechem. The word of Yahweh is upon you. Kin'an, Eretz Flishtim, Canaan, the land of the Philistines. And I will cause you to be abandoned so that not a single inhabitant is left. Okay? I will destroy you and none will be left. Okay, so what's going on here in verse 5? Let's get a little commentary. So Gaza shall be abandoned, Ekron shall be uprooted. Hebrew exhibits untranslatable wordplay for both of these. Aza Azuva Ekron Te'aker. So yeah, that's a good point, which I failed to mention, but let me do it right now. So this is in Hebrew, so it's translated here as Gaza will be abandoned. But in Hebrew, it's wordplay. Aza Azuva, right? So Aza is Gaza, and Azuva will be made desolate, will be abandoned. Okay, will be left behind. And they sound alike in Hebrew. Aza Azuva. Okay? So it's wordplay in the Hebrew. And Ekron Te'aker. Ekron, here we have the ayin. Second letter is the ayin, third letter is the kuf. And here we have, again, the uprooted. We have an ayin followed by, actually, an ayin kufresh. And here we have ayin kufresh, the second, third, and fourth letter. And here also the second, third, and fourth letter. So it's translated into the English as Ekron shall be uprooted, but it's a word play. Okay, it's alliteration in Hebrew. Ekron te'aker. Ekron sounds like te'aker. So it really works in the Hebrew. It's much more poetic, much more expressive in the Hebrew than, of course, it is in the English. Okay. Very good. So that's that. The Karaites, this probably means Cyprus being the approximate reputed place of origin of the Philistines. So we won't get into right now, but the Philistines are supposedly from Kaftor. Kaftor is the biblical name for what many scholars believe was Cyprus, the island of Cyprus. I have a very good friend who's living in Cyprus right now. Maybe I'll go visit him one of these days. It's a very quick plane flight or even a boat ride from Israel. And it's believed that the Philistines invaded or came to the coast of Israel, the southern coast of Israel, from Cyprus, and that's why they're often called the Sea Peoples. They came by sea and took over the southern coast of Israel, right? In fact, let's look that up for 1 second. So we'll do a little, who were the Sea Peoples and when did they come to Israel? Okay. So the Sea Peoples, right? It's often believed that the Philistines are the Sea Peoples, are a loose, diverse coalition of seafaring migrants, raiders, and mercenaries originating from the Aegean Sea, southern Europe and western Anatolia. Again, the Torah speaks about the Philistines coming from Kaftor. Kaftor is believed to be Cyprus. Driven by a regional climate crisis, drought, and famine, they migrated across the eastern Mediterranean during the late Bronze Age collapse. So there's something famous called the Bronze Age collapse, when many of the most important empires and cities of the Bronze Age suddenly collapsed very quickly, and that instituted the beginning of what was called the Iron Age. Okay, and settled on the coast of modern-day Israel between 1200 BCE and 1175 BCE. Who were they? A scholarly term. No ancient text uses the phrase Sea People. It is a modern term popularized by the 19th century Egyptologist Gaston Maspero, to describe tribal groups that attacked the Mediterranean coast. So the Peleshet, or Philistines, the most prominent group to settle in Israel was the Peleset, whom scholars directly link to the biblical Philistines. Other factions, Egyptian records from the Temple of Ramses II, also name factions like, we don't have to go through the names, and so on and so forth. DNA and archaeological evidence from sites like Ashkelon show they were not just armies, but families of farmers and artisans fleeing a collapsing homeland. And we won't go into the whole thing, but if you're interested, you can look up more about the Sea Peoples, which included the Philistines. Okay, so let me just check in and see if there are any comments or questions here. Right, it's actually Erech Apayim. You're right, Log Cabin. Very, very good point. And there, what it really means, so yes, it says Erech Apayim. So there you have Erech, which means length. Literally it means length of noses, and it's not in the plural form, it's in the dual form. So it means length of the dual noses or the nostrils. So it means length of nostrils is literally what it means. But it's referring back to the same idea. Length of nostrils means, and you're right, it's usually translated as long suffering. And what it means is length, a long time before fire comes out of Yahweh's nostrils. So it's that same analogy. You're 100% right. So length of nostrils means is a long time. There's a length, right, before fire comes out of Yahweh's nostrils. So it's referring back to the same idea of fire coming out of, figuratively speaking, coming out of the nostrils of Yahweh. And yes, Zefaniah is familiar. This phrase is used many times. I'd venture to say hundreds of times throughout the Tanakh, whether it's speaking about a long time before fire comes out, or whether it's speaking about fire coming out or fire about to come out. It's all coming back to that same imagery of fire coming out of Yahweh's nose or nostrils. Okay? All right. So, yeah, slow to anger, or they usually translate it as long suffering. Okay. Radio. So, okay, so the Karaites, the nation of the Karaites, whoever it is. So according to Robert Alter, the Cypriots, and the origin, so again, referring to the Philistines. Okay. Okay, so verse 6. Let's see how many verses are on this chapter. So I guess there are 15. We won't go through the whole thing. We'll go through about half today. So verse 6, Wahaita Hevel Hayam. Oops. Try that again. Wahaita Hevel Hayam Noth Navoth Ikrot Roim V'Givarot Tzon. And so this seacoast, this strip of land along the sea, will be Navoth. And there's missing a wow here, but it doesn't matter. Navoth are pastures. Krot Roim, so wells cut out for shepherds. The krot means to chisel or to cut out. So the implication here, according to this translation, is wells. Ugidarotzon, and fences for flocks of sheep and goats. Okay, see how Robert Alter translates that one. 6. So in the coastal regions, they'll become meadows for shepherds, feasts, and sheep pens. So he translates it a little bit different. Not sure where he gets feast for shepherd's feast. Let me look at the Hebrew again. Time. Meadows for shepherd's feasts. Hebrew. So he's translating krot as feasts. So 1 second, please. Yeah, I'm not sure where he gets feasts from. Okay, at any rate, hold on 1 second. Let me just check on the little kitten. Just give me 1 second, please. Little girl, where are you? You okay? Okay. So in other words, the imagery is clear that these cities, these Philistine cities, will be abandoned. The Philistines will be kicked out. They'll be left as desolate cities, and they will turn into basically agricultural land, which is better than some prophecies. Let's say the prophecy against Edom in Isaiah chapter 34 and in the book of Obadiah, where we have the land of Edom being left completely desolate, where essentially it shall be uninhabited and shall just be a place for the jackals and the desert owls. So this is a little bit of a better prophecy. It is along the seacoast after all. Okay. So verse 7. So now we have a continuation of the prophecy against the Philistines or against the Philistine city. So this is a nice prophecy. Maybe those who oppose Israel taking over Gaza shouldn't read this prophecy. So the strip along the sea, strip in parentheses along the sea, L'sherit Beit Yehuda will be given over to the remnant of the house of Yehuda. So we have again this idea of the remnant. Remember, I spoke about this in my opening monologue, that there's a sifting. If we look at the nation of Israel over the thousands of years of history, we see there's always a sifting. Many people do not make the cut. They are cut off from the nation. They are destroyed. Their entire lineage is wiped off out of the nation. And a remnant remains. And the remnant that remains, according to the Torah, according to the Tanach, are those that are loyal to Yahweh. Okay, so it's almost like a thin thread out of an entire fabric. Just one thin thread makes it through towards the end, and that thin thread that makes it back to the land of Israel and that is loyal to Yahweh is the ones that reap the ultimate blessing, that reap the ultimate benefit, that reap the ultimate gift that Yahweh wants to give his people Israel. And through this sifting process, through this, I guess you could say, winnowing process, or this process of refinement, many fall by the wayside, and only a remnant remains. So for myself, being back in the land of Israel, I've made it this far, and I hope that by my attempt to follow true Torah, to reject false philosophies such as rabbinical Judaism, Pharisaic rabbinical Judaism, Christianity, Western secular culture, and all the rest of the false philosophies that are out there, I hope that Yahweh will bless me and include me in this remnant, right? Not cut me off. And I fear for those rabbinical Jews who I honestly was just trying to help, that many of them will not make the cut, that they are stuck in the stubbornness of their ways, the stubbornness of their heart, that they're embracing the ways of their ancestors rather than rejecting the ways of their ancestors, as we're commanded to do in Leviticus chapter 26, verse 40. So it's sad, because sometimes you try to help people and they see it as you're trying to hurt them or as a threat, when really all you're trying to do is help them. But what can I do? At the end of the day, people have to be responsible for their own actions. Okay, so so this strip of land along the coast, meaning the Philistine region, Philistine land, Philistine territory, will come into the possession of the remnant of the house of Judah. And this is clearly after talking about after the destruction by the Babylonians, since the entire prophecy, it would seem, of Zefaniah is prophesying this upcoming great day of wrath of Yahweh during the time of Josiah, who, again, this is before the destruction by the Babylonians of Judea and Jerusalem. Okay, so Alehem Yira'un, and they will graze their flocks, they will pasture their flocks upon this land, upon this Philistine land. Okay, Bivate Ashkelon. Oops. Once again, Alem Yira'un. So they will graze upon them. Okay. Bivate Ashkelon. Ba'erev Yir Batsun. So in the houses of Ashkelon, remember Ashkelon is one of these these Philistine cities, one of the 4 of the 5 that's mentioned in the previous verses, they're going to be abandoned, right? The Philistines are going to be ejected, are going to be expelled from them, and it's going to turn into pasture land for the remnant of the Jews, of the Judeans. And so at night, in the evening, the houses of Ashkelon, which have now been abandoned of the Philistines, will be places where the flocks lie down. Yarbitzun means the shepherds cause their flocks to lie down. They put them down onto the ground or let them kneel on the ground and get their rest. Okay, so literally, Bapate Ashkelon, in the house of Ashkelon, Ba'erev, in the evening, Yir Batsun. This is not Yarbitzun, it's Yir Batsun. So the flocks themselves will lie down, will rest. Okay, it's a pa'al form rather than make you feel form. Anyway, that's the technical point. Ki Yifkaveim Yahweh Eloheim Shav Shivitam. Because Yahweh will pay them back. In other words, will look after them, I guess I could say. Or I should say, Ki Yafkidim Yahweh Elohehem, because Yahweh, their God, will look after them, V'shav Shivitam, and will return them to their from their exile. Okay, or literally V'shav Shivitam, and he will return them in their returning. Shivitam is their returning. So we can get a little bit of a better translation here. We'll look at Robert Alter. So this is verse 7. Okay. And it shall become a region for the remnant of the house of Judah. On these they shall graze their flocks. In the houses of Ashkelon in the evening they shall bed down, meaning the flocks. For Yahweh the God shall single them out and restore their fortunes. Yahweh Elohim v'shav shivitam. Okay, see if we can get a little commentary on that. They shall bed down. So verse 7, because the verb is used for the bedding down of animals, the reference is still to the flocks, but in the fluidity of pronomial reference characteristic of biblical Hebrew, them in the next line is Judahites, not their flocks. So he's making a very technical point. Let me just look at it again in the Hebrew. Dead, right? Okay. Okay. It's too technical point to get into right now. And so that is verse 7. And then we go on. So this is judgment against the Philistines. Okay. So this is really a continuation of the judgment against Judah. So let's just review. We're going to end our study of Zefaniah here, and we're going to go into the book of Numbers. But let's just review. So if we go back to chapter 1, it was an oracle against Judah and Jerusalem. Okay, that there's going to be great destruction coming to Jerusalem. And then we start chapter 2 here, and we see gather together and repent. In other words, this is a message to the Judahites, to the Jews. And then that message against or to the Jews ends here. And now we start having oracles or judgments, prophecies against various nations. The first one is here, is against the Philistines. Right, their cities are going to be abandoned and turned into pasture land, where the Israelites, the Jews will take over and use it as places for their sheep to graze. And then next time we'll get into the judgment against other nations, Moab and Ammon, and then Cush, Ethiopia, and Assyria, and so on and so forth. Okay, so we're going to stop here, and we're going to go over to the book of Numbers. We'll take a quick break. Let me just mark this down that we're going to start next time in verse 8. Let me just mark down the page here. Verse 8, 4485. Give me 1 second. So it's Zefaniah chapter 2, verse 8. Verse 8, 4485. Okay. And now we'll take a break for about 5 minutes. Before we do, any questions or any comments? That is correct. Cyprus derives from copper. It was a place where copper was mined. and especially during the Bronze Age. That is 100% correct. So, bronze is 90% copper and 10% tin, and Cyprus is one of the main sources in the Mediterranean region for the copper that was needed to make bronze for the Bronze Age, which was then replaced by the Iron Age. Okay, any other questions or any other comments before we take a quick break and then go into the Book of Numbers? Okay, so let me put on music for about 5 minutes. I'm going to go grab a little bit of water. And then we will get set up to study the Book of Numbers. I hope you guys are enjoying the study. I should also point out that that for anyone who's interested, I do private lessons in both Biblical Hebrew. I have a bunch of students, but I do have room at this point for 1 or 2 more. And I also do something called Biblical Life Coaching, which I guess speaks for itself. It's kind of therapy or life coaching. I'm not a professional therapist, but a life coach, and based on the wisdom of the Tanakh. So if anybody's interested in those things, please contact me privately. And I am very dedicated and into doing that. Okay, so let's take a break for a couple of minutes, and then we will start learning continue learning the Book of Numbers, chapter 1. I'll put some music up, and we'll see you guys back in just about 5 minutes. Okay, welcome back. And let's get going on the Book of Numbers. Once again, you are participating right now in the World Alliance of Qara'im weekly Torah study. If you're not part of our announcements group, then please find the link in the description. That's where we announce all of our Torah studies, any other online or in-person get-togethers that we're having, and any other announcements that are relevant to the community. Also in the description, you'll find links to our Facebook page, Facebook group, my personal Facebook page, Instagram, TikTok, so on and so forth, all of our social media stuff. So all of that information is in the links. And so let's dig into the Book of Numbers. We were in chapter 1, verse 17. Let me share the screen. And we'll just review in the English, verses 1 through 16, again, just to get the context. So Yahweh spoke to Moses in the tent of meeting in the desert of Sinai on the first day of the second month of the second year after the Israelites had come out of Egypt. So once again, when did the Israelites arrive at Mount Sinai? They arrive in Exodus chapters, I believe it's 17, if I'm not mistaken, thereabouts. So Exodus chapter 15 is the Song of the Sea. 16 is wandering in Merivav, if I remember correctly. In 17, they arrive at Sinai. When did they arrive at Sinai? Well, according to the rabbis, they'll say on the holiday of Shavuot, which they also call Chag Matan Torah, the holiday of the giving of the Torah. That is provably false. Shavuot has absolutely nothing to do with the giving of the Torah, even though it probably came, but not definitely fell around more or less the same time as Shavuot, which did not yet even exist at that point because there was no wheat harvest. But at any rate, that's besides the point. Shavuot, and we saw it in Exodus chapter 23 and elsewhere, is a holiday for celebrating the first fruits of the wheat harvest. At any rate, the Israelites in Exodus, again, I believe it's chapter 17, if I'm not mistaken, or thereabouts, arrive at Sinai approximately the beginning of the third month of the first year. And here it says that they're in the second month of the second year. So all of the rest of Exodus from 17 onwards, so about half of the book of Exodus, all of the book of Leviticus, including the inauguration of the Levites and the beginning of the sacrificial or the tabernacle service, and up until here and beyond, we'll see exactly when they move, all takes place at Mount Sinai and within the space of less than a year. So approximately the third month of the first year, meaning the year they actually exited Egypt. And now we're on the first day of the second month of the second year. So 11 months, give or take. We don't know if it was a leap year, but we'll say 11 months. So everything from Exodus chapter 17 through Numbers 1 and beyond, we'll see exactly when they leave Sinai, has all taken place. The entire book of Leviticus, half of the book of Exodus, and the beginning of the book of Numbers, all takes place within the space of about 11 months. The entire book of Deuteronomy takes place in the space of about 2 months. And we know that for a fact. If we go to Deuteronomy, I'll just take a quick detour over to Deuteronomy. So Deuteronomy basically consists of the three main speeches of Moses right before his death. And we get a timestamp, and time and place stamps are extremely important in the Torah. So we get a timestamp at the very beginning of the book of Deuteronomy. So Moses is in the plains of Moab. So it's in the 40th year on the first day of the 11th month. Okay. First day of the 11th month. Years generally have 12 months. They could have 13 if it's a leap year, based on the observation of the Aviv barley, but let's just say it has 12 months. Okay. So 11, 12 months. And we know exactly from Joshua, the book of Joshua, chapter 5, we know exactly when the Israelites entered the land of Israel. When was it? Sorry, Joshua chapter 4. I'll just find it. This is Joshua chapter 3. Okay, crossing the Jordan. So they went to the Jordan for 3 days, blah, blah, blah. Hold on a second. Where is it? All right, I can't find the exact verse, but they crossed into the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month of the 41st year. Okay. Is that correct? Let me just verify that. Spies. 1 second. Yeah, it's chapter 3, if I'm not mistaken. Israelites. It's got a timestamp here. Just give me a second. So when the camp broke, cross the Jordan, great distance. So it's not in 3. Joshua 4. 1 second. Stones. Here it is. On the 10th day of the first month. So it's Joshua 4:19. On the 10th day of the first month, and we're talking about the 41st year, the people went up from the Jordan and camped at Gilgal. Gilgal is the first place they emerged from crossing the Jordan River. I visited what they believe to be Gilgal. You can too if you come to Israel or if you live in Israel. So it's on the 10th day of the first month. So Deuteronomy starts on the, I should have left Deuteronomy open. So let's go back to Deuteronomy. So the book of Deuteronomy, the entire book starts, and it's basically 3 speeches by Moses. It starts on the first day of the 11th month of the 40th year, and the Israelites enter the land on the 10th day of the first month of the 41st year. And there are 12 months in a year, in a regular year. So that means we're talking about 2 months and 10 days later. So Moses here in the book of Deuteronomy is speaking starting on the first day of the 11th month. Within 2 months and 10 days, Moses will be dead. The entire book of Deuteronomy will have been spoken to the children of Israel. Joshua will have taken over. Joshua will have taken over the nation and will have led them across the Jordan River. Jordan River also splits, like the Red Sea. Most people forget that, but the Jordan River also splits, and will have emerged in the land of Israel in Gilgal. And the first thing they will do after that is attack and destroy the city of Jericho. So all of the book of Deuteronomy takes place within about 2 months and 10 days less. Okay, but at the most 2 months and 10 days, since we don't get an exact day when Moses died. Okay, so it's kind of interesting because the book of Genesis stretches from the beginning of the universe. Actually, I claim not the beginning of the universe, the primordial era of the earth. So let's say, how old is the earth? 5 billion years ago. We won't get into young earth creationism or not. I'm just going to go with the scientific one for now. So let's say 5 billion years ago or 4 billion years ago, and ends with Joseph and Jacob and Joseph and the family in Egypt they say in the 18th dynasty, perhaps. So approximately, when is it? I'll just figure it out in my head again. So I think around 1500 BCE. So Genesis spans 4 billion years. Okay. The book of Exodus, from the beginning of the book of Exodus until they arrive at Sinai. So Moses is, we don't know the exact date that the burning bush occurs. Or even actually Exodus starts a bit before that, when Moses is born. So we know that Moses is 80 years old when he comes back to free Israel from Egypt. So the entire book of Exodus, and then we know that Israel is freed, and then within a couple of months they're at Mount Sinai. So all of the book of Exodus from chapter 1, so chapter 1 through chapter 3 spans 80 years. And then chapter 4, when Moses arrives in Egypt to free the Israelites, until chapter 17, when they arrive at Mount Sinai, spans a couple of months, just a number of months. And then Exodus chapter 17 through Numbers, we'll get to it, I believe it's Numbers 9 if I remember correctly, when the Israelites explicitly leave Mount Sinai, spans 11 months. So it's kind of crazy when you think about it. So Genesis spans 4 billion years. The first 3 chapters of Exodus span 80 years. Chapters 3 through 17 span a couple of months. Let's give it 5 months or something like that. And the rest of Exodus through all of Leviticus through Numbers up to chapter, I believe it's 9, span 11 months. And then the rest of Numbers spans the rest of the 40 years in the desert until they get right outside the land of Israel. And then Deuteronomy spans 2.5 months. People don't realize the timeline. They think everything is spread out, but it's not the case. I should even write it down. But when you think about the timelines that are occurring in the Torah, it's very interesting, right? It's very revealing. It's not a steady time flow at all. Far from it. Okay. So we are in Numbers. Let me close out Deuteronomy. So he said, again, I'm just going to read in English up to verse 17, and then we'll go over to 17. He said, take a census of the whole Israelite community by their clans and families, listing every man by name, one by one. Right? So Yahweh commands Moses to take a census. You and Aaron are to count to their divisions all the men of Israel in Israel who are 20 years old or more and able to serve in the army. 1 man from each tribe, each of them, the head of his family, is to help you. These are the names of men who are to assist you. And then we go through all of the names. I'm not going to go through each one. These were the men appointed from the community, the leaders of their ancestral tribes. They were the heads of the clans of Israel. So each tribe, okay, and how many tribes do we have? Well, there are 12 that are listed. Are these the 12 sons of Jacob? No, because Levi is not included here. So why are there 12? Because Joseph, who gets the double portion, became 2 tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh. So this is Joseph being counted as 2 tribes or 2 half tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh. And Levi, that's reckoned separately, since they are the priests and the assistants of the priests, are not counted in this census. They're going to be counted separately. Okay, and that brings us to verse 17. Just checking to see if there are any comments. All right, so verse 17. So Moses and Aaron took these men that had been pointed out, that had been whom had been pointed out by name, specified by name, meaning those assistants from each tribe. And they brought together the entire, they usually translate Edah as a congregation, but it really comes from the underlying root. The underlying root for Edah is Eid, meaning a witness. So it's really I like to translate it as the witnessing community. I always say that the Edah is the original Jehovah's Witnesses. What does it mean, the witnessing community? The people that witnessed the miracles of Yahweh. So they are literally the Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay, so all of the, I'll just translate this, community, right? Ikiru, they gathered together, they brought together on the first day of the second month. Wayit yaldu al mishpachotam lebeit avotam. So yit yaldu literally means gave birth to themselves, if you want to take it quite literally. But what it means is established or declared their ancestry, declared their lineage. Lineage in the Torah is always by the father, not by the mother. The rabbis, as they did with so many things, switched 180 degrees. So for instance, they switched the beginning of the year from the first day of the first month in what is later called Nisan to the first day of the 7th month, making up a fake false holiday known as Rosh Hashanah. And there's no implication of it being such in the Torah. It is called Yom Teruah, and we've discussed it many times before. I won't get into it right now. At any rate, so they declared their lineages, their births, their birth rights, or their birth, their lineages, al mishpachotam, according to their families or their clans, levet avotam, according to their fathers' houses. במספר שמות מבין 20 שנה ומעלה לגולגלותם. According to the number, or by the number of the names of those who are 20 years of age and older, legulgelotam, according to the head count. Literally, this means the gulgelotam means according to their heads or skulls. The gulgolet is a skull, coming from the underlying root gal, which means round or a wave. So why would a gulgolet be a skull? Because it's round. I guess if you roll it down a hill, if you conquer your enemies and roll their skulls down a hill, they're going to roll. So that's a gulgolet. Okay, so literally means according to their head count, we can translate it as. Okay, in other words, each of the entire congregation was gathered together, all of the 12 tribes minus Levi. And each person presented their birthright, presented their lineage, their patrilineal lineage, and that was tallied head by head. A head count was given to each one. Asher tziwa Yahweh et Moshe, as Yahweh had commanded Moses. Where did he command Moses? Right here in verse 1. Okay, proof that when the Torah references a previous commandment, it's not far away usually. Here it's verse 1. For those of you who remember the talk last week on Kasher Tziviticha in Deuteronomy chapter 12 verse 21, which the rabbis falsely claim has to do as proof for an oral law, referring to some kind of laws of shechita, of animal slaughter that's external to the written Torah. We saw that really it's just a reference to a couple of verses earlier. And this is the same thing here as Yahweh commanded Moses, where? Just 19 verses earlier. And he tallied them, reckoned their numbers in the Sinai desert, or in the wilderness of Sinai. Okay? So that's the setup. And now we're going to get a whole bunch of numbers. This book ain't called numbers for no reason, for naught, right? Now we're going to get numbers. And we're not going to play with these numbers. We're going to point out certain things, but we will do some analysis on the numbers, but we're not going to look into it. We're not going to use it for any kind of numerological, God forbid, analysis, gematria, or any of that bullshit, as the rabbis are wont to do. We will point out some interesting things, such as who has the largest number, which tribe has the largest number. We'll point out the fact that the numbers seem to be rounded off, although that's debatable, and we'll point out some other interesting things, but we're not going to use them as a gateway to magic and mysticism and numerology and all this other kind of stuff that's completely forbidden, like praying at the grave of the Rambam. I know a couple of people mentioned the video that I did about the Orthodox Jews who prayed at the grave of the Rambam. I live about 40 minutes from that grave, and it's just disgusting to see. It really is sickening. So, okay. Any questions before we go into the numbers? We're going to go through this very quickly because it's very repetitive. Yeah, we're not going to get into that right now. I refer you to the work of Dr. Gerald Schroeder, who is a rabbinical Jew, but I think makes some excellent points as to whether young earth creationism, whether the 7 days should be taken literally or not. And I'll just leave it at that. Okay, so verse 20. Remember, another thing we pointed out is that the count is going to go in the order of birth, in the birth order. No, it's not going to go exactly in the birth order. My mistake. Wait a second. Just see here for a second. So Levi's not there. Judah. So Levi is omitted, but this is the birth order. Reuven is indeed the firstborn. Shimon. Then there's Levi, who's omitted, of course. We said Judah. Yisachar and Zvulun. Those are the 6 sons of Leah. And then it doesn't go directly to the concubines. Then we go over to Joseph, Ephraim, and Manasseh. Okay, so Joseph's sons are doubled, as we saw in Genesis chapter 49, I believe it is, at the end of Genesis. Ephraim and Manasseh shall be to me as Reuven and Shimon. In other words, Ephraim and Manasseh are promoted up to the level of full tribe. Sometimes they're called half tribe, but basically promoted up to the level of the sons of Jacob, not the grandsons of Jacob. That's a sign of Joseph getting the double portion. I've spoken about this many times before. Won't get into it right now. And Benjamin. So these are all the sons of sons of Rachel, grandsons of Rachel. Okay. Then we get into the 4 sons of the concubines: Dan, Asher, Gad, and Naphtali. So it doesn't go in chronological order, because after the 6 sons of Leah, then we have the 2 sons of Rachel's concubine. Rachel gets jealous, and then we have the 2 sons of Leah, who strikes back, and then finally we have the 2 sons of Rachel at the end, Joseph and Benjamin, and then of course Rachel dies during while giving birth to Benjamin. So at any rate, we have the 6 sons of Leah, the 2 grandsons and 1 son of Rachel, and then the 2 sons of the 4 sons of the concubines. Okay, so that's the order. So it's really rank order rather than strictly chronological order. As I always like to say, everyone in ancient Israel knew their name, rank, and serial number, and we see that very clearly here. They're mityaldim. They are identifying their lineage based on their clan, their father's house, their tribe. Okay, everyone knew exactly where they stood in ancient Israel. And if they didn't, it was a problem, as, for instance, spoken about in the book of Ezra, when certain Kohanim could not identify their lineage. Jesus Christ is Lord. Well, I mean, you are entitled to believe what you want. Joss Keaton 6148, but if he's Lord, he ain't doing a very good job, is he now? Sorry to break it to you. So I'm sorry to see that you are stuck in the cult of Christianity, that you have daddy issues, and you need a daddy that you can look at a picture of, because a God that has no bodily form is too abstract a concept for your pea brain to perceive. But I do wish you the best in coming out of that pagan idol worshiping cult known as Christianity. And even though I strongly disagree with it, you're welcome to join the study. You're welcome to participate. Welcome. Okay, so, and I'm sorry I called you a pea brain, but anyone who thinks God has a physical form has, let's put it this way, their brain ain't the size of a pumpkin. Okay, so anywho, where was we? Right. So So we're getting into the numbers now. Verse 17, verse 18. No, verse 19. No, verse 20. So the children of Reuven, I want to open up my spreadsheet for this so we can keep track of these numbers. This is why Google Sheets was invented, to keep track of the numbers in the book of Numbers and elsewhere. Let me just see if I can find it. Boy, I'm enjoying the study for some reason. I don't know why. I like numbers. I'm a numbers guy. Okay. Rightio. So let's see here. I might already have this. Let's see. Maybe not. Impurity censuses. Oh, okay. Here we go. Okay, so we'll just confirm. So here's our count. Now, it is a bit suspicious. So if you'll notice, look at the numbers we're going to see now, right? Everything ends on a round number. 46,500, 59,300, 650, 600, 400. Isn't that a bit suspicious? Is it possible that every single one of these tribes has, just ends on a round number? It's clearly not possible. Although the text seems to imply that it's an exact count. So we'll have to discuss that and tackle it. But let's go ahead and let's confirm these numbers as we go through. So it's very repetitive. I don't think there's any reason to actually read through in the Hebrew. Again, it does say legulgolatam, right? It's a very strict head count that implies. So I'm not going to read word for word here. There's no reason to. I'm just going to grab the number. I'll read the first one. Just so we can get the cadence. So Pikudehem le Mate Reuven. So the head count, the census for the tribe of Reuven, Shisha wa Arba'im Elef wa Hamesh Ma'ot. So 46,500. Let's just confirm that. And there's our 46,500. Then I will read the Hebrew because the language is slightly different. So Livnei Shimon Toldotam Lemishpachotam Lebeit Avotam. So their lineages, again, that's relating back to this word Yaladim, to present their lineage is Yaldu. So Toldotam is their lineages. Is that a dead bug? Hold on a second. I think to get the dead bug off my notebook. Nasty. Okay. So dead bug on my tongue. Okay. The Neshimon Toldotam, Shochotam Leveit Avotam, so to their clans and their houses of their fathers. Pikudav B'mispar Shemot Legulgolatam Kol Zachar Miben 20 Shana Umala Kol Yotzei Tzava. So we have a whole, and I'm not sure why. So for Shimon, we get a whole kind of like, wait a second, let me just see here. Oh, it is. It's a repetition. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that was specific to Ruvain. B'nei Ruvain b'chol Yisrael toldotam lishpachotam, b'nei Shimon toldotam lishpachotam, leveit avotam, b'mispar Shemot legulgolatam pikudav b'mispar. I'm just seeing something here. Mispar Shemot legulgolatam. Kol Zachar Miben 20 Shana Umala Kol Yotzei Tzava. Yeah, so there's repetition of this phrase, but it's interesting because there's a slight difference here. I won't get too technical, but the Beit Avotam, Todotam, Shpotam, the Beit Avotam, Mispar Shemot. So here it omits the word Pikudao. I don't know why. Slightly different language, it was almost the same. Pikudehem, here it's Pikudao. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that one. Just want to see again, just one thing here, just myself. So Livnei Shimon, Tovatam, the Mishpachotam, the Veit Avotam. Here we have the extra word pikudao, which means their count or their head count or their reckoning. And here it's omitted. Maybe it's a textual error, or maybe there's a difference for some unknown reason or no reason. Spar shemot legugolatam kol zachar miben 20 shana mana kol tzava. Other than that, it's identical. Kudem lemate Shimon. Anyway, the count for Shimon, for Simeon, is 59,300. Okay. and לבני גד, תולדותם לשמחותם, לבית אבותם במספר שמות. Yeah, the language is slightly different in each one. This one, maybe, I don't know. I don't have an answer at this point. Maybe the Torah just likes a little bit of variety so it doesn't get boring. Let me just do this again. לבני גד, תולדותם למשפחותם, לבית אבותם. See, the rabbis would read into that, but we're not reading into that. It's just, the Torah often does things like that. So במספר שמות, so it doesn't say לגולגולותם, אותם למטה דן, חמישה, I'm sorry, למטה גד, Shimon. Now it goes to God. So it's a slightly different order. I'm just noticing certain things here. So God, so in the original list, so God is listed towards the end, right? So just to sum up, children of Jacob and their, just get the list of all the children of Jacob. Okay. So, by birth order. Okay, so here's the chronological birth order, right? So we've got, okay. So, right. Okay, so we've got the first four children are born to Leah. Okay. Then Rachel's maidservant, Bilhah, gives birth to Dan and Naphtali. Because Rachel gets jealous, so she says to Jacob, take my maidservant. And then Leah is not giving birth, so she gets jealous. And so then Leah says, take my maidservant, Zilpah, and Gad and Asher. So these four children, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher, are the children of the concubines, of the maidservants. Then Leah gives birth again to two more. Sons Zvulun. We're not going to get Dina into it right now. And then finally, Rachel gives birth to Joseph and Benjamin. So that's the order. Okay? So here, the order we said is a little bit different. We have the six. So up at top, when we have the people from each tribe that are assisting, we've got Reuven, Shimon, there's no Levi, and Judah. And then we skip ahead of the four children of the concubine, and go to the rest of Leah's children, Yisachar and Zvulun, completing the five of the six children of Leah. Then we go to the sons of Joseph, grandson. Then we go back to the four sons of the concubines, Dan and Asher. Right, so it's Gad and Asher, so Dan and Asher, and then Gad and Naphtali. So Dan is the fifth child, and Asher is the eighth child, and they're from two different mothers. And then Gad is the seventh child, and Naphtali is the sixth child, and they're from two different mothers. So I don't know. I'm not sure why it's going by this order. And then when the actual count occurs, it goes by a different order. So here we have Reuven, Shimon, so far so good. Then we jump to Gad. So Gad is listed here as second to last. Gad is the seventh child of Jacob, the son of Zilpah. And yet, down here in the count, Gad is third. And Gad is, again, I don't want to say important, not important. All children are beloved and important, but there is a hierarchy. Children of Joseph at the top of that hierarchy, actually. So what's the order here? It's not ascending order. It's not descending order in terms of population. It's not alphabetical order. So I don't know. I do not know. I don't have an answer to this. If If anyone has any ideas, then please let me know. I wish I had all the answers, but I don't. But then we go to God. And we get a slightly shortened version of the intro to the count. And then we get the actual count. 45,650. So 45,650. Let's add a couple of columns here. Okay. We'll add mother. And we'll add birth order. Nice. Okay, so mother of Reuven is Leah. Shimon, Leah, Zvulun, Leah. And Levi is not listed here at all, and Yehuda is Leah. Then we've got Ephraim and Menashe. Okay, so Ephraim and Menashe. I mean, it's really Osnat, but we'll just say Rachel. It's not Rachel. I'm just going to put Rachel in parentheses. Rachel. And then this is Rachel without parentheses. And then we've got Dan and Asher. So Dan and Naphtali are Bilhah. So Dan, Bilhah. Naphtali's Bilhah. And then Gad and Asher are Zilpah. Right, Gad and Asher are Zilpah. So, and the birth order is 1, 2, Yehuda is 3. No, I'm sorry, Yehuda is 4, Levi is 3, not included here. And Dan and Naphtali are 5 and 6. Then Gad and Asher are 7 and 8. Then we have Issachar and Zvulun are 9 and 10. So 9, 10. Then we have Joseph. So this is really 11. And then Benjamin is 12. So it's a really weird setup, right? 1, 2, 7, 4, 9, 10, 11, 12, 5, 8, 6. I can't figure it out for the life of me, to be 100% honest. I'm not sure why the Torah is doing this order. If you want a bullshit answer, go to the rabbis. I'm sure they will provide some nonsense answer, which they will present as truth. But I can't do that. I don't have an answer. I'll have to research it. Yeah, it's getting late here. I think we're going to stop in just a minute. Maybe, Buckhaven, you might be right. That's definitely a possibility. Good call. Good call. Good call. We'll have to look at that. I'll keep that in mind. All right, let's just go on with a little bit more. So then we have God. And notice there's really no Oh, okay, that's God. No, there is. So God is, we said, 45,650. Then we have Yehuda. שמות מבין 20 שנה ומעלה, כל יוצאי צבא, בקדם למטה יהודה, 74,000, so 74,600. So that is the largest. So let's highlight that as the largest. Put that in red. Text white. Okay, that's the largest. What's the smallest? The smallest is Menashe. Well, these are half tribes, so it makes sense. So actually, Menashe and Ephraim together come out to 72,700, which is almost as large as Yehuda, but fine. Menashe is the smallest. So let's put him in, I don't know, purple. Okay. But so Yehuda has a lot, 74,600. Then we go to Issachar. בני יששכר תולדותם למשפחותם לבית אבותם במספר שמות מבין 20 שנה ומעלה כל יוצאי צבא. And we get this repetitive phrase, right? Because it's kind of like an official document, just as an official document would have repetitive phraseology, right? So this is really the impression, I think, that the Torah here is trying to give, that these phrases, the same introductory phrase, right? From the sense of God, all the men 20 years old or more who were able to serve in the army were listed by name according to the records of their clans and families. The number for the tribe of God is, as we said, I'm sorry, Issachar. No mistake. So, 54,400. Okay. Let's add one more column, population rank. Okay. Rank by population. So population rank. All right. So I could probably get Excel to do this. I'll just manually do it. So this is 1. This is 2. Let's get Excel to do it. Sheets, rank, numbers by order. Data. Example. One to click on something. Okay. So we have to change this to C3 through C14. Oops, doesn't like it. Parameter 1 expects number values. Oh, rank. Time. Rank A2. imagine numbers are in column A. You want to place the ranks in column B. Okay. So this is going to be rank C1. Rank C1. Oh, not C1, C3. There we go. Okay, there are ranks. Something doesn't make sense. No. 1. Why is this both 2? There's no 3. Oh, not C, B. Whoops. Let's try that again. B3. B, no. Yes, B3. And then this is going to be B3 to B14. Okay, let's try this again. Good. And there we go. And yeah, that works. So there's a rank, population rank. Put this in the center. Birth order. Cool. So there's our population rank. Okay. Let's go a little bit longer. So then we have next, so we did Issachar, now we have Zvulun. Close this out. Leave that open. Issachar, Zvulun. Verse 30, so לבני זבולון תולדותם למשפחתם לבית אבותם במספר שמות בין 20 שנה ומעלה. כל יוצאי צבא, פיקודיהם למטה זבולון, 57,000, 57,400. Okay. Yosef, so here it says the children of Joseph, Libnei Ephraim, children of Ephraim. So remember, Joseph gets a double portion. He's split into 2 tribes, Ephraim and Manasseh. And you have the whole hand crossing thing in the end of the book of Genesis. Ephraim is the second born physically, but is given the status of firstborn. תולדותם למשפחותם לבית אבותם במספר שמות מבין 20 שנה ומעלה כל יוצאי צבא, פיקודיהם למטה אפרים 40,500, 45,500. That's Ephraim. I'm sorry, 45,500. Ephraim 40,500, 40,500. Menashe. בני מנשה תולדותם משפחתם לבית אבותם במספר שמות מבין 20 שנה ומעלה כל יוצאי צבא פיקודיהם למטה מנשה 32,000, 32,200. Benjamin. לבני בנימין, we're in verse 36, בנימין תולדותם משפחתם לבית אבותם במספר שמות מבין 20 שנה מעל הכל יוצאי צבא, פיקודיהם למטה בנימין, 35,000, 35,400, 35,400. That's correct. דן. לבני דן, תולדותם למשפחותם, etc. דן 62,700, 62,700. אשר. פיקודיהם למטה אשר. אשר 41,000, 41,500. נפתלי. תולדותם, etc. מטה נפתלי 53,000, 53,400. Okay, let's make sure this is actually counting. Right. So this is the count. This is a calculated count. Right, so this is the sum of B3 through B14. See the formula up here. And then verse 44. These are the head counts that Moses and Aaron reckoned. Who Moses and Aaron, the elevated ones, or the princes of Israel, the leaders of Israel, counted. Shnem asar ish echad levet avotav hayu. Israel. So this is the census that Moses and Aaron did along with the princes or the chosen ones of Israel. 12 men, ish echad lebeit avotav hayu. One man for each of his father's houses. That's what we saw above. Verse 45, we're going to get the summary. Wahyu kol pikudei bnei Israel. So the final head count of the children of Israel, lebeit avotam, according to their father's houses, which means their tribes. Or no, doesn't mean their tribes, but in their tribes, miben esrim shana umala, from 20 years and older. Kol yitzei tzava b'Yisrael, all of those who were capable of going out in the army of Israel. And here we get the final tally. V'ayu kol apikudim 600,000 ו3,550. So 603,550. So it all checks out. Okay, this is the total we get in Numbers 146. And I made a note here, there's the same number reported in Exodus 38:26. When the half shekels were collected. We can look at that maybe next time. I think we're going to stop here for today, because it is getting late. Let me see. Okay. We're going to stop there. See if there's any commentary. It's 49, so we didn't get up to that yet. Right. Okay, we're going to stop here. Let me just make a note for myself that we're picking it up next time in 147. Just 1 second. So we're going to start next time in chapter 1, verse 47. Okay. Zefaniah 2:8. That's funny. 2:8. 1078. Okay, so I got all my notes. Okay. All right, let's stop there. Any questions, any comments? Any questions, any comments? Log Cabin, good commentary. Thank you very much. We will get to all of these points eventually. Please remind me of them if I don't mention them when we get to the relevant chapters. Okay, any other comments or questions before we end it for today? So we see this book has a very different cadence, a very different kind of character from the book of Leviticus. The book of Leviticus was extremely technical and presented a very coherent system for the overall the systematized serving or worship of Yahweh. And here, it's a very, very different kind of feel to the Book of Numbers, and it will continue to be so, as I mentioned previously. All right, then if there are no questions or no comments, we'll end it here. I thank you all for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the study. And we will continue it next week. Again, I won't repeat all the stuff, but check the descriptions for ways to join the various groups, various social media, becoming an official member of the World Alliance of Qara'im, and donations if it's in your heart to do so. Okay? So let's end for today. Hope you enjoyed the study. This has been Hakham Melech Rahmiel ben Yaakov of the World Alliance of Qara'im, wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom and Shavua Tov wherever you are. And we will go out, as always, with a little bit of music. So thank you for joining us. Shabbat Shalom and Shavua Tov.
母胎心灵深处，拥抱着一个渴望。我们的眼睛朝向东方，远远地眺望夕阳山。我们不会失去2000年的希望，在自己国度做个自由民族，住在西安和耶路撒冷。在自己国度做个自由民族，住在西安和耶路撒冷。有在心灵深处，拥抱着一个渴望。我们的眼睛朝向东方，远远地眺望夕阳山。我们不会失去2000年的希望， 住在西安和耶路撒冷，在自己国土做个自由民族，住在西安和耶路撒冷。我们不会失去2000年的喜乐，在自己国土做个自由民族，住在西安和耶路撒冷，在自己国土做个自由民族，住在西安